Okay, so today we're sitting down with Lisa Wolfe. I actually met Lisa almost 3 years ago, I do believe.
Yeah.
Like, not
I
that
don't
you
know
would
where.
know that, but Flashes of Hope was the first time that I
Okay.
took your photos. And then I think like 6 months or a year, I mean, it was a while later, I found you on Instagram through a picture of Arlie, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to follow this story. And then just for the past, I don't know, year or two, just following you guys and just super inspiring, super positive. I love everything about what you're doing, and I just think that you're a phenomenal human being. So I couldn't think of anything that would be better than having you on a project that totally talks
Getting
about
emotional.
strength. So
Yes.
um, basically, I'm going to give you kind of the room.
Okay.
We're in your house, so it's already yours.
Welcome. Yes.
But I just want you to tell us your story, and I hope that everybody has a chance to listen to what you have to say.
Well, thank you for having me. It still feels so fresh when I think about what Arlie, I always say Arlie because it is what she's went through, even though this has been our journey. And I know that her innocence, maybe she doesn't realize how big her story is and how amazing she is because she's 6 years old and she's been going through this since she was 2. So I don't think she fully realizes how amazing so many people think she is. But as the parent, I do carry this heavy load of like a little bit of sadness and gratitude of like, she's lost so much childhood. I've lost so much of motherhood, normalcy, milestones, happy moments with her. It's just hard to find that balance of perspective and being like, she's here. We have this another opportunity to make it up and make all of our happy moments up. But at the same time, I do feel this deep sadness way deep down, like we've missed out on so much and we've been through hell. So, yeah, my daughter, Arlie, she was diagnosed at the age, it was 1 month before she turned 2. Her symptoms were just lethargic, sleeping a lot. I took her to the doctor so many times. I felt crazy. I felt like that mom that was being a hypochondriac, and they told me growing pains. They tested for the flu. It was summertime. And I was like, this is not normal. Something is not right. And I always tell moms, listen to your gut, listen to your instincts. You know your child better than everyone. So finally, after 7 days of her just sleeping literally all day, she started throwing up blood. And I was like, okay, here we go to Vanderbilt Children's. They admitted her immediately. All her lab work was low, but it wasn't alarming, so they kept us in the hospital, and for 7 days, they were like, it could be a tick-borne illness, it could be Lyme disease. We were still just in the wait. She wasn't getting better, but she wasn't getting worse, so we were just hanging out. I wasn't scared, and then she had a seizure. In the middle of the night, I was laying in the bed with her, and she was restless, and I could just tell, like, I sat up, because it's weird, I just sat up, and I was like, something's not right, she's restless. And then I've never witnessed a seizure, and it was the seizure, besides the bone marrow transplant, the seizure was the most traumatizing part of her whole cancer journey. And maybe that's the connection I have with, that was the sign from God or whatever you believe in, like, hey, like we need to do more and figure out what's going on with her. And so after the seizure, they did a bone marrow biopsy, and then they saw the leukemia in her blood, and we caught it so soon, like 30% in her bone marrow. So it hadn't developed enough to go into her bloodstream yet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So usually, like, when you're diagnosed, it's already in your bloodstream. So it wasn't yet. And so we had no clue. And, I try and find gratitude and everything, and I feel like the seizure was the sign, like, hey, take this case more serious. Unfortunately, though, after the bone marrow biopsy, they got the results so fast, and we found out at like 11 o'clock at night that she had cancer. I didn't cry at first because I just was almost relieved that we finally had something. Like, okay, now we have this, and like now we can make a plan. So it hadn't hit me yet until they're like, okay, we're going to take you to the cancer floor now, immediately, at 11 o'clock at night. And that part I was not ready for. I was like right now, can we just like stay in our other room, like overnight? No, we have to get you there now. And I remember walking, have you been on the cancer floor?
I've been to, yes, I believe so, because I think that's where they do the photos in that conference room. I think it's on it, but
You're
it's
on the clinic side. Okay, so the hospital side.
Okay.
It's very eerie. Like, you open the double doors, and it's just this really long hall of hospital lights. And so I was like, where are we? It was late at night. And we turn the corner, and then they have, their office is like glass, like walls where the doctors sit. And all 4 walls are covered in pictures of bald kids. And that's when it hit me. When I saw all these sick, bald kids, their photos all over these walls, I became extremely angry. Like, very angry. So then they admit us to our room. And I remember, I do regret being so rude to the nurse, but I was hurting. I was angry. I was in denial. I was like, this is not happening. And she was telling me all the rules.
At 11 o'clock at night.
At 11 o'clock at night, when you start chemo burn, and her diapers, and you need to change her diapers with gloves. They were telling me this in the middle of the night. So I was like, not okay. They told me I couldn't sleep with my kid, and I'm like, I'm sleeping with my kid. Where's this? I'll sign anything. Like, I was being very defiant, and she was being so kind. And I can't imagine, like, how she felt as that nurse that has to greet parents who have newly diagnosed children. Mm-hmm. So now I'm like, that is an angel nurse right there. She is doing her job, and that's a hard job. So as I'm like going through the healing process, I do have these really random regrets, like how I treated people when I'm learning even in your worst, like you still have regrets, even though I just really couldn't help the way I felt. But so that's what I'm working through right now. But so they admitted us, they told me the rules. And so, strangely, I slept great that night. Like, it was the best sleep I had in a week, though. I think I was just exhausted. I was like, well, here we go, When Arlie was first diagnosed, she actually did great. She was standard risk, pre-BALL. Pre-BALL is the best type of leukemia to get. Mm-hmm. She was in the perfect age range, 1 to 10, I think 1 to 9. She's Caucasian. That also is in her favor with your genetics and your DNA, which I think is kind of crazy. African American children with leukemia, I think their success rate drops like 30 to 40. It's like significantly just by their race. It's crazy when you do the research on our genes and DNA, and as humans, it's interesting to read about. So she was in and she was female, which that worked in her favor as well. So we got her in remission in a month, which was great. That was the goal. Really aggressive chemo, hit her in remission. And then leukemia treatment is actually the longest treatment out of all pediatric cancer treatments. So Arlie's treatment plan was 2.5 years. And little boys are, I think, 6 or a year longer. Oh, wow. So like an average child is a year treatment. Mm-hmm. So that's a long time. So we got her in remission. The first 6 months, we did really hard chemo, vomiting. She lost her hair. The hair loss part really hit me because I'm a hairstylist. And I didn't realize how much emotional connection I had on my child's hair. I hadn't even given her first haircut yet. And to me, when she started losing her hair, that's when I realized she was sick. Like, that was the sign that these drugs I'm putting in her innocent 2-year-old body, it was just weird. It's like, this is a sign, like, it's hit her. Mm-hmm. Even though she was vomiting already. But that, to me, it was really hard. So I saved her hair for a while. I was that weirdo. I have a ball of hair that was in a bag. I was like hoarding everything. Like, I was hoarding syringes, like the most random things that you wouldn't think you would like emotionally connect and keep. It was just therapy for me, but I finally have started going through all of it. But then we got her in maintenance. My maintenance phase is a year long, and it was great. And little did I know that if I would have known now what the beginning of her transplant journey would be, it was easy. Like, that part was easy, and I didn't realize it yet. But in the middle of maintenance, so a year and a half in, we went to her normal doctor's appointment. So she got IV chemo once a month, and She felt great. After chemo, she's jumping off the couch, being insane. And I got a phone call at 7 p.m. at night from my favorite nurse practitioner. She was like my saving grace, Miss Tara. And through it, she made me feel loved. She was very affectionate. I feel like she probably broke a couple rules with her patients just because she made me feel so comfortable and not crazy. Because you feel kind of crazy when you're in this. She called me and I didn't think anything of it. I was like, hey girl, what's up? She was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm calling you so late. And she was like, but we found blasts in her blood work. And I was like, it didn't click what blasts were because thought she was going to be clear forever. And I was like, you mean like bad cells, or cancer cells? She's like, blasts are bad cancer cells. And I remember being in my bathroom alone and I broke down. I was yelling. That was harder than the original diagnosis because she's standard risk, she has all the good things, and she still relapsed while getting oral chemo every day and getting IV chemo. So I'm like, what's about to happen? And I was like, are you serious? And then I was like, are you sure? Then I was like, went through the denial phase again, maybe there's not, but it was 90% in her blood. Oh, wow. So, how? She had no symptoms this time. And it was the most confusing night ever. And the crazy thing is it's weird the little things that you relay when you think about what happened the day before we went to church for the first time. Since I haven't been to church in 10 years. And we went for the first time and I cried the whole time and I felt free. I was like, okay, I just needed that good tear jerking moment and be like, life's going to be okay. And to go do that and then go the next day and your kid relapse, it did a number on me spiritually. I'm not going to lie. It just broke me down. That was it was like a sick joke or something. Why did I don't know. I just rethink those things. Why did I go to church that day? I haven't been to church in so long. And then I was like, let's just go. Let's just look around. Let's just see. And then that's what happened. So I definitely became very angry with God. I think rightfully so, because I don't understand why kids get sick. There are so many bad people out there that are in this world walking around, and then these innocent children that have their whole lives to live and make a difference, and they're suffering and dying. I'll never understand it. Ever, ever, ever. So I just remember when I had to tell Derek, I had to hand him the phone and I was sobbing. I think he thought my grandmother died, probably. And I remember he was more just shocked, silent, and I called my mom immediately, and then I called my best friend, and screamed some more. I was just hysterical for days. I was like, am I gonna be okay? I was checking my mental health, I have to be strong for Arlie, but I don't feel okay right now. And so they admitted us immediately the next day. They did the bone marrow biopsy to confirm, and then they told us, this is serious now. It's rare for you to relapse in the middle of treatment, standard risk ALL. This is rare. And this is taking Arlie to not high risk. This is taking her at a very high risk. And the chance of the survival rate drops really low. Then I just remember how they talk to you about your child's survival rate is just something I can't comprehend either. Still, I've never went off statistics. I know they're there for a reason, but I don't tell people Arlie's survival rate or her success rate. She is different and she's her own person, and I base it off that. But when they're telling you this, all of the chances and what will work, what might not work, it's just so morbid.
Mm-hmm.
I had never really thought about death until that appointment. If my child died, I would not want to be here. like, period. And so I just remember that was the first time I thought about her dying, like, truly, like, looking at her and thinking she might be dead. Like, I remember how morbid it felt and how I felt and how numb I felt. But then I'm ready to get started. Like, you know, you do what you have to do for your kid. And that's one thing that when people say, I just don't know how you do this or how strong you are. And I'm like, you don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. Like, strong people don't have a choice to, like, be strong. You know, you're put in a situation and you sink or you swim, you know, or I call it fight or flight mode. And that's what I have felt like I have been in for 4 years now. So I remember they started aggressive chemo immediately and it took her down. Like, she lost weight, she lost her hair again, she could barely walk. And, you know, they were like, if this doesn't work, like, we're going to have to try a trial study drug. And, you know, that's scary to think, like, your kid's going to be a guinea pig. And it unfortunately did not work the first month. And so, but I was eager. I was like, then I started getting hopeful. I'm like, maybe Arlie's the future for children's drugs. They haven't changed most kids' pediatric cancer drugs since the 50s.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. They use the same drug since the 50s. And that's when, I don't know if you've ever seen the hashtag more than 4. Mm-hmm. Children's pediatric research is 4% out of all cancers, mm-hmm. which to me is insane. Like, they're our future. Like, it's hard. I don't know how to get people's attention to take children's cancers more serious, but there was a drug out that we had heard about. One child had been on it at Vanderbilt Children's. I knew of her. I watched her on social media do it. She did great. She was a relapse. It was for relapse leukemia patients. But unfortunately, to get on this research, you were put in a computer system and you were given a 50-50 chance. So if you signed this form, you agreed that you're going to do this research, but you here's the handle where you will get on the drug. And if you don't, you still have to agree to do the research and do other, like, traditional drugs that are just really bad and they make you really sick. Like, they just suck. So I was terrified. I was like, what are we doing? Like, I feel crazy. I feel like my child's life is in my hands right now, and I have carried that pressure for a long time. And I'm working through, I don't know what I'm working through. I feel like I'm working through so much, but that's something that, like, I've taken so serious that it just affects my everyday life. I take myself serious now, and I'm like, chill, Lisa, like, live a little. And I'm teaching myself to do that because I've had to be so serious for so long for her, even down to, like, would I feed her? Is this going to give her cancer? It's just the craziest things that go through your mind. But I remember the day we signed her up for the trial, and literally I watched the trial study nurse practitioner come in and literally push a button, and it was like that, the numbers spinning, and then it just would tell you if you get it or not. And it was just crazy. This is how it works. Like, and she fortunately got into the trial study. And
that's like a nightmare, like a purgatory nightmare. It's like,
you're just watching. It's like winning the lottery in a way. Like, you're waiting for that number. And it popped up. We got into the trial study to get on the drug. And it was, we threw a party when we went home. Mm-hmm. We were like, we got to go home. We got a week off because we knew, here we go. We threw parties for every little thing. That's when I learned about this, is like, you celebrate everything. Like, we literally do that. Yeah. Anyways, so this trial chemo was in a backpack that was going to be, the tube would be in her chest and her port for a month straight for 24 hours a day. So it was like a whole chemo bag. So what is that, a liter? I'm not good with, it was heavy. In this little backpack that she would wear all day. I was like, well, that sucks, but they said that hopefully the side effects were going to be better. Her hair wasn't going to start, it was going to start growing back. It was like too good to be true. I'm like, we can do this backpack. So we bedazzled this backpack up. It was amazing. And we started it. Now, it was scary at the beginning because she's the second kid to get on this drug, relapsed child. She has to be monitored every 15 minutes for her blood pressure, her oxygen, and her temperature. And then she's on a lot of drugs for like fever and stuff, like premeditated, like pre-drugs. So you're just like watching her. And she did have an allergic reaction. But it was like, we had to make the decision, are we okay with what it did? It was she started screaming and then broke out in a rash and was screaming. So we took a break, and talked it out, and we were like, some Benadryl, let's try it again. Like, what do you do? Like, once again, my child's life is in our hands. Like, let's see if this makes her, they had an EpiPen ready, like that kind of thing. So we started it again and gave her some more Benadryl, and she did great. Now she slept, but we had to be monitored for 3 days, and then we got to go home for the month. So it was strange. Bald kid, a backpack. You can see the tube hanging out her chest. Imagine taking your kid to a park, letting them go down a slide with this tube. I'm like, is it going to rip out? Everyone's staring at her. That's when I experienced, I don't know, I've always just taught my child to just love everyone, like, even if we look different. And that was my first experience of it happening to us, like getting stares, like the kids whispering to their mom. And I was so upset because I'm like, this is a perfect time as mothers to talk about these things. Mm-hmm. She does look different. Why don't you ask her why she has a tube in her chest, or why she doesn't have hair? Start the conversations with your children. Don't just stare and talk about people. Like, I was so upset, but it was so good for me to teach Arlie, like, that's not okay. She was told that kids wouldn't play with her at a park because she looked weird. And so I take that very serious still. I'm like, we love everyone no matter how different they look, because you looked different at one time. And I remind her of that all the time. Mm-hmm. And so she didn't care, though. She played her heart out. She got on the swing. We let her jump on a trampoline once. Just crazy stuff. She would do flips, like with this machine.
You're just sitting there like, oh my God.
Yeah, it has a machine in there too. That's it. Yeah. So, but she did great. Her hair grew back. She gained weight back. She was wild, and she had one symptom, and it was a lot of snot, like an obscene amount of snot that came out her nose. And I was like, that's it. Like, okay, I can just have snot all over my clothes all day, So we did that for 3 months, and then we did the bone marrow biopsy again, like to determine, like, if she did not get in remission this 3rd month, like, I didn't know what the plan C was. And that's when I was in the most panic, was like, this is it. Like, this drug has to work to get a bone marrow transplant. When you get a bone marrow transplant, you cannot get it until you have 0 leukemia in your blood. Because if you don't kill as much as you can, then there's a chance it could come back. There could be cells hiding in your body. So everything's just so stressful in the cancer journey. Like, everything. I don't know how. I'm just like, I think about what parents go through and all this, and like, our health, like, what are we gonna be like in 10 years? What is our health gonna be like? Like, this cannot be good for us, like, mentally, physically. Good thing was we waited 2 days. They did on the weekend, so we had to wait the whole weekend to get our results, which was torture. The wait is what I feel like I call it, just being in the wait for anything in life is just torture. You're learning to be patient. I'm tired of being patient. You're learning to trust the unknown. You're learning to try to be positive. Because if you don't, you're going to be miserable. So it did teach me a lot being in all the waits. A good thing is, got her in remission. And then we start the process to find a match. It was just one thing after another. Fortunately, we had 5 perfect matches for Arlie. Usually, like, a sibling is a perfect match, which we don't have other children. And Derek was a 7 and I was a 5. They won a 10 out of 10 perfect match. So we started looking, and we found someone who was a 12 out of 12, which to me was like a freak of nature for me. Like, yes, like, he has super power blood. Like, yes. It was a 23-year-old male. That's all we knew. And then we're not allowed to know more for a whole year. And then if you're the person donating lives in another country, you have to wait 2 years. So thankfully, ours lived in the United States, and all he knew on his end was it was a 3-year-old female. He didn't know she had cancer, a blood disorder, like he just was giving. And he gave because his uncle, who was 37, passed away of leukemia, a relapse. And I'm thankful that inspired him and the whole family to get on the registry. We went through Be the Match. It's a bone marrow transplant registry. I knew nothing about it until my child got sick. And it's amazing how your blood can save people's lives. I didn't know this, but bone marrow is an organ.
Oh, I didn't
Yes. So, like, when 9/11 happened and the only planes that were allowed to fly were the organ donating planes, bone marrow was on that plane, bone marrow. So, I just think it's neat that it's taken that serious. It's considered an organ donation. It's the easiest transplant to do, like, it's through an IV and you're awake most of the time. So, I'm always like, give your sign up for Be the Match there. But we did full body radiation the week of the transplant. Have you ever seen the pictures from the radiation part?
Everything that you've put on Instagram, yeah.
I'll resend you the videos. Like, it was so morbid. I've never seen a radiation machine. It was probably bigger than this room. And then it's just a piece of plywood on the floor.
And they just have to lay there.
They sedate children.
Oh.
So I'd have to hold her. They would sedate her. We had to do this twice a day for 6 days. And then I have to lay my child on a piece of plywood. And she has all these markers where radiation is going to hit. And she had to get full body radiation. So it just, it just hits everything. And I had a hard time understanding radiation because you can't see it. But it's some gnarly stuff. Mm-hmm. We had doing it twice a day was hard. And so I just remember how exhausted I was by the 6th day, and that's when the mouth blisters started hitting her. Hair started falling out again. The blisters were from, you think your mouth, that lining goes all the way through your body to your bottom, and she had them all the way down. And so she was just so frail. So it was hard because celebrating the bone marrow transplant day because she didn't feel good. She was literally so lethargic, couldn't eat. It was a great uneventful day. Like, it looks like a big old black bag of blood. They hung it up. They monitored her every 20 minutes, and then it was a 4-hour infusion, and that was it. And then it takes days, and then it starts kicking in. And then you start seeing the really intense side effects. So, people ask about the transplant day, and it was, very boring. Like, we just sat there. We had people come in and sing. My friend brought a cake to decorate, but my child was too sick to, eat it. We tried our best, but it was kind of a sad day, just, how much we had beaten her body down that week. And they told us, this bone marrow, it's going to engraft, which that means it starts taking over her body, which is good. And they said this will happen it's hard to determine, it will happen between day 12 to 18. We'll start seeing if we killed every blood cell in her body, platelet, every red blood cell, every white blood cell. It's crazy to think if someone kills every cell in your body, but then we replenished it immediately. So we're watching. We start with 0, everything 0, and then we start watching it start to come up. So watching it be at 0 for days is really scary because I'm like, how is she surviving right now? This doesn't make sense. It's crazy. Whoever invented and said we're going to do a bone marrow transplant. I know it happened in the 70s, I think. But, I don't understand how people come up with these things. And it's so scary. So, we just watched her be lifeless a lot. The crazy part is she started engrafting on day 6. And they thought it was a virus. So, there's no way that her body could be taking this bone marrow this quickly. So, let's test her for viruses. And that night they did her lab work for the day, and there were cells, little tiny numbers, it was 10. But we were like, oh my gosh, and they're like, well, let's give it another day. I really don't think her body could be taking the bone marrow this quickly. And the next day it doubled. It was on 40. And they're like, your child's engrafting. Congratulations. This is really soon. But I guess his bone marrow was so aggressive it started attacking her. So she developed 105 fever for 7 days.
Oh,
I've never witnessed a fever this strong, and it was really scary. It felt like you were holding fire, and all she wanted to do was be held. She broke out in an extremely horrible rash. Like, it was like blisters on top of blisters on her whole body, in her mouth. Her eyes were bloodshot red. She was throwing up. We had to give her a feeding tube because obviously just it was a mess. And once again, another excruciating part of the journey, just watching your kid. I was like, is she going to die? Like, I've never seen her look this horrible. How is she going to make it through this? Like, I just felt like my body was in panic for probably a straight month watching that, because it was a long month of her looking like this. But thankfully each day her lab work got a little better. And they just said her donor has really, 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 really strong bone marrow. And I'm so thankful for that. Even though it was aggressive, that's what we want. I envision it killing every bad cell in her body when it was reacting like that. And so it took about, we were in the hospital that year for 2018 for 6 months. So we lived in it. I still tried to run a salon, or not run a salon. I worked and tried my best 2 days a week to get out. It is hard leaving your very sick child to work, but I knew it was good for me to step away from that setting of watching all kids be sick and dying. I knew it was good to step away. Like, we all need something for ourselves. I also did photography for the hospice kids in the hospital during that time. Never imagined that's what I would do on my spare time when my child was napping in the hospital. But I feel like you always need to find your purpose. We all have one. And if you're not using your talent or a purpose, like, you are just wasting your life away. Because I feel like we are put on this earth to make a difference. And I'm preaching that to my child at 6 years old. Like, we are here to be of service to others, even when we're in our hardest times. That's when we started our nonprofit, was month 6 in the hospital, living for everything. We ordered our first batch of shirts. I was like, we have not been thrown in this for 4 years to be sitting here doing nothing. Like, I'm all ears, God. What do you want from me? What are we supposed to be doing? But like, you're trying to get my attention, and I need to know. So let's just start somewhere. My husband thought I was crazy. He was like, right now, like, maybe, like, let's wait next year. Like, let's let Arlie get better. And I'm like, we're going to get back to our normal lives hopefully next year. And then we're going to forget, and we're never going to do anything. We need to do it while we're in it so we can feel it and experience it and know what people need. Which it's been 2 years and I haven't forgotten one thing yet. But you just don't know. And I feel like you have to do it in the moment. That's how I live my life. Which is kind of aggressive, I guess. But we started our nonprofit. We started handing out shirts. We did all the paperwork in the hospital, which was really hard. Starting a nonprofit, as you know, is extremely hard. You do it with lots of love. We're not getting paid to do this. But we've been impacted in some kind of way, and that's why we do it. And other people out there are going through this. And when I think about Vanderbilt Children's is 5 minutes from my house, and I know there's a floor full of cancer patients, like, it is hard to not feel guilt all the time that, okay, my kid is doing good. But I watched easily 20 kids die that year that Arlie became close with of cancer, and there is a survival skill as a parent, because I feel like every child deserves to live, and I don't understand why Arlie, but I'm not going to, like, take it for granted. So we finally got out of the hospital July 2018. It was weird. It felt like aliens. Like, I literally felt like walking outside the hospital and seeing normal people just living their lives. Like, it's crazy when things are taken away from you and the world keeps turning. So in the hospital, our world is stopped, but everyone's on vacation, living their best lives, being influencers, posting beautiful pictures and cute outfits. Like, that is hard to watch when you're in a real reality. So that the whole COVID-19 quarantine thing, it was a piece of cake for us. Like, this is our lives. We're like, we got this. Y'all need help? We can teach you. Like, because this is actually easy. Mm-hmm. This part is for us. So I definitely had to adjust being out and around humans. Now, we didn't go back to normal anytime soon. Arlie dealt with so many side effects. Unfortunately, she is special. So Arlie has lived in a bubble since her transplant pretty much. We were starting to get a taste of normalcy, and then COVID happened. So it's okay, She doesn't know any differently, which I'm thankful for, but we lived in a bubble. We slowly tried to heal her, and then last year we took her to the zoo for the first time in April, and she got a cold, her first normal kid sickness, and got hospitalized for 3 weeks. Developed a rare blood disorder, had to start chemo for a blood disorder, steroid shots, infusions every week. Like, it started all over again, but I was okay. I'm like, this isn't cancer. This is just another bump in the road, and that set us back a lot last year. But I don't know, quarantine felt like a fresh start for me. This March I felt like Arlie's in her best health this year. We got back normalcy. She lost her first tooth. We played. I got to see Arlie's personality in a different way, because we're trying to open a salon the month after we got out of a 6-month hospital stay, and I did it for her and I to heal and have a safe space for us and people like us. Everyone needs a safe space. Everyone needs to feel loved and beautiful, and so I opened the greenhouse salon for Arlie. So I was very consumed by my business and my nonprofit that, like, I felt like I was watching her develop into a beautiful young little lady and get these normal moments, but like quarantine really grounded me and let me see her for her. I felt like Arlie got to see me smile the most I've ever smiled. That's another thing that I hold against myself, is like, Arlie has seen me so sad for 4 years, like cry, be depressed, just be my worst version of myself I've ever been. And my kid is having to see that. And I'm thankful she just loves me for me. And I just felt like quarantine felt like, this is a fresh start for you, Lisa. Like, I'm broken, I'm traumatized, but I've done great things. That's what I tell myself. It's crazy what trauma does to you. Like, you don't start healing in it or immediately afterwards. And that's what I realized the hard way. I started healing this year, like January. It just hit me. Like, I just started reliving things, I tried to stay in the moment, but it just, everything we went through, my mental health, I started pushing people away. I just wanted a fresh start. You want new friends, you want a new life, and that's what I was trying to get. So the healing process after all this has been extremely messy. I'm working through it, and I'm learning to love myself, because I feel like I've done the best that I could through the hardest time of my life. Like, what do you do? Mm-hmm. You can't help that you've seen kids die, and you're always going to see that in your head, and you've seen your kid almost die. How do you, like, find joy when it just sits there, and that's what I'm working through, is just finding my joy, but not forgetting about, like, what made me this way. Like, to be proud of myself. I would have never started a nonprofit if it wasn't for my child's sickness. I would have never been as compassionate and thinking of others if Arlie wouldn't have got sick. I would have been selfishly living my life right now, putting her in school, putting her through all her sports, not even thinking twice about, like, this is a privilege to do these things. This is not a right. This is a privilege that your kid is here, that you get to experience these things. And that's how I view the quarantine. This is a privilege. We get extra time with our children that we would have never had because we're so busy. And it's not our fault. It's just how life is these days. It's a rat race, and we're just so busy doing everything that, like, I stopped. I enjoyed myself. I decided to start working through it during quarantine, and it got messy. Thankfully, I was here in my home with my husband. I cried a lot. I cried so much, but not in a bad way. I just started thinking about, like, me and everything, and reflecting on Arlie and my husband and how much me and my husband have went through. Like, this could have broken us. And here we are, drinking margaritas, singing karaoke every night, just living our best lives together. It just, like, I don't know, like, I'm so grateful for what everything has done for me, because I wouldn't be who I am now. But I want to be a light for other mothers and other parents or other people going through trauma. I think that's where I'm trying to find my purpose after trauma. Is like, I know there's a purpose, not just with my nonprofit, but to help people feel safe, because you feel a mess and it's messy and you feel alone and you feel like no one understands you, because you're like working through this thing and everyone just wants you to be happy because your kid is alive. And I am, but like, I also like just witnessed a lot of stuff, and I need help processing this. This wasn't normal. So that's what I started doing during quarantine. And here I am, just being pregnant now. I got pregnant during quarantine. Another thing I never thought I would be giving another chance to do. I just always told myself I can't have another kid, because, like, I can't have another sick kid. I can't do it. That's been, like, I've always wanted more kids. I'm like, I can't have more kids. I wouldn't be a good parent. I'm tired. I had a miscarriage the month or 2 months before Arlie got diagnosed. I tried for a year, got pregnant, and had a miscarriage. I find it a blessing that I had a miscarriage. I know it sounds crazy, but, like, think if I would have had a baby during all this and the neglect that baby would have had. I've tried to find perspective in everything, but I'm like, I just don't think I'm meant to have more children. And quarantine gave me back my happiness with my husband and just the love I have for him, and kissing and hugging, and I got pregnant. And I don't think I would have ever gotten pregnant again if it weren't for quarantine, and just me starting to process my feelings and start loving myself, and just being here, and having no distractions. So there have been so many beautiful things that Arlie's journey has brought. Like I said, I don't think Arlie knows how awesome she is and what it's done for me. I feel like this baby is a sign of our fresh start, and I'm trying to put pressure on this baby because I don't think how important she's going to realize she is for me. I'm going to get back parts of motherhood that I missed out on with Arlie, and I'm going to have guilt through all of it, I know, but also, you know, Arlie's going to get to see another side of me, like in a positive way, and she's going to get to help me become an amazing mother for this baby. She's going to be the best helper. I just can't wait. So I'm trying to see the light, and there just have been so many beautiful things that have happened because of my child's cancer journey. Now, would it have been this way if she wouldn't have made it? I don't know, but I'm going to hold on to the hope that I have and the gratitude that I will always have. I will never take anything else for granted, like, ever. Like, cancer twice, bone marrow transplant, and everything in between. I'm just really grateful, and I'm just here to start sharing her story, and I'm thankful for you to let me share her story, because I've never really completely talked through it. This feels like a good therapy session right now, but I'm excited about the next chapter, to just start being there for others in any way I can, whatever the next chapter is. I'm about to see motherhood. And
when is it coming? Or when are you due?
January 17th. Arlie's relapse anniversary is January 16th. They at first they were like, it's 16th or 17th, and I was shook when they told me the date. I'm like, out of all the dates, like, I was like, I thought it was cool. Like, this is a sign, you know, like, I have all these bad dates or anniversaries that I really take very personally, and they're really heavy for me. And here we are bringing new life into the world around the same time. My first doctor's appointment and ultrasound was on her 2-year bone marrow transplant anniversary. So yeah, like, I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm even celebrating these little dates. I'm like, I get it. It's a sign to me that it's a fresh start. So I don't know. It's been a wild ride. That's all I have for all that.
So where can people find you, help you? What do you need from other people?
So when it comes to us helping children, we make comfort kits for pediatric cancer patients for long-term hospital stays. You can go on our website at livingforeverything.com. We sell merchandise. We have all types of things: hats, shirts, kids onesies, everything. You can purchase a shirt and that goes towards a comfort kit. An average comfort kit costs about $150. It's bougie though. It's got a Tempur-Pedic mattress topper. It has 2 sets of sheets, one for the child's bed, the hospital bed, one for the parents' couch. Has a sound machine, 2 real towels, because the towels in the hospital are like hand towels. We have, what else goes in there? We customize it for each child, and we put their favorite things in there, and a blanket, maybe games, just really what the child's needs are, what they want. You can donate a comfort kit in honor of someone. You can make a donation. There's a donation button, and that's what we mainly do. We also gift every parent at Vanderbilt Children's every Christmas. It's around 600 parents with things of comfort. That's kind of our theme, what brings comfort. And that's our focus: robes, house shoes, sleep masks, just cozy things while you're sitting in a hospital. Like, we're not going to get dressed up. We're going to stay in our PJs, which I kind of loved. My dream is to get sponsored by a designer pajama company. And then we give those pajamas to mothers in the hospital with sick children. Like, that's, if I was ever an influencer, I would want to be an influencer for designer pajamas, if someone wants to know one of my secret dreams here. So yeah, that's how you can help. I'm working through the next chapter of as a cancer mom and how I can help mothers. I don't know that part yet, but I know there's something coming. I'm working through it with a life coach right now. We're trying to find my purpose as a cancer mom right now. Not just the nonprofits for the cancer moms and the families and the child, but this is more for the adults going through it, the trauma. So stay tuned. That's how you can help. And I can't stress enough to support all your local nonprofits. And I always say that, and I always like to acknowledge volunteers that help nonprofits. Volunteers do not get enough, what's the word? They should be honored a lot more. Volunteers do these things for free, and if I didn't have the amount of help from my nonprofit that I did from volunteers, I wouldn't be able to reach as many people as I do. So volunteer, get out there, and support nonprofits.
Awesome. Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. This was fantastic.
Thank you for having me.